Ready to roll? All right, good morning, everybody. Today is Daf Hey Dalit Sekas Gittin. Going towards the end, another couple days. So we traverse to Shas Bavli. So 2 lines to the top, Taner Rabbana. Hareza Gitech Amanas Shetinasi Leplani. So he gives his wife, he says, okay, here's your get, on the condition you marry Bab. That's the condition. That's the tonight. Harezo leitinase. Harezo leitinase. So she can't marry. Bimises leitetse. However, she does marry, then we do not make her leave the husband. Now, my cover. What's going on here? Who is she marrying? Is she marrying the one she's forbidden to fulfill the tonight? She marries somebody else. So Rav Nachman Hachikamar Harezo leitinase lo. She's not allowed to go ahead. Remember, he says, here's your get, in the condition you marry Bab. So she's not allowed to go ahead and marry Bab. Why? Because perhaps, people start rumors that, Jewish men, give their wives as gifts to others. If she marries somebody else, if you don't go ahead and make her leave that person. The Gemara says, I understand. She was given a get al Tanai. The Tanai was goes ahead and married Bob. She goes ahead and marries Kevin, right? So the Tanai was never fulfilled. She's still married to the first guy, and she's an Eishes Ish. So because of a Gzeira that people are going to say that you give wives to Matana, you like Feitze. So Ella rather different shot. Ella Rav Nachman Hafi come as means to say, Hare Zu like Tanasi lo. She should not go ahead and marry Bob. Why? People will say that wives are given as gifts. Be says lo, but if she does go ahead and marry Bob. Lo teitze. Then we do not go ahead and make her leave him. Because of a gzeira, right? That people will say that they give, their wives as presents. Then we do not make her go ahead and leave back. So Amar le Rava lohu delot say hali achar say what? Okay, so she shouldn't go ahead and marry back, but she can go ahead and marry somebody else. And if she marries somebody else, she's still an Eishes, as we just explained. But by the tonight, she has to go ahead and fulfill the condition by marrying Bab. So tonight. Why didn't she say this? Maybe you should go ahead and marry somebody else, and then later on she'll divorce that guy, or and then she'll marry Bab to fulfill the tonight. That shows that she was a divorced woman from the get-go. And it'll go like that, which was argued on Rav Yehuda, the Itamar that was said of there. A person says, "My eyes are forbidden to sleep today if I sleep tomorrow." In other words, if I sleep tomorrow, I have to be up today, right? So, but if I sleep today, that means I have to be up tomorrow. Right? Because I can't be up both days. So, or I can't sleep both days. Now, so what does Rabbi say? Amar Rav Yehuda, Al Yishen Hayom. Do not sleep today. Shema Yeshin L'machar. Perhaps you go ahead and sleep tomorrow. So do not sleep today. Rav Nachman says, Yishen Hayom, you can go ahead and sleep today. Right? Vein Chayshin Shema Yeshin L'machar. And then we're not Chayshin going to do it tomorrow. So in other words, according to Rav Nachman, you can go ahead and do something now and fulfill the tonight later on. Which would be like the case of the woman. You can go ahead and marry somebody else. Marry Kevin now, right? And then tomorrow, Lamachar, you go ahead and marry Bob to fulfill the tonight, to make that you were a grusha all day long. What kind of comparison is this? Over there, if he goes ahead and he sleeps today and he has to stay up tomorrow, so that is within his power. The boy, right? Mavris nafshe b'silusa. If he wants, he can go ahead and keep poking himself, with thorns, or do whatever it is in order for him to drink a lot of coffee, whatever it is, in order to stay awake. It's within his control not to sleep tomorrow. Over here, right? Is it her choice to go ahead and be single tomorrow that she can go ahead and marry Bob? It's not. So therefore, you can't say it's the same thing. Rather, if the guy says this is your get in the condition to marry Bob, she can't go ahead and marry Bob, and she can't go ahead and marry others. She can't go ahead and marry Bab because then people will say that men just give wives as gifts. And she can't go ahead and marry somebody else. The boy tonight because she has to go ahead and fulfill the tonight. It wasn't fulfilled. And then it says, slow, if she does end up marrying Bab, then we do not make her go ahead and leave Bab. Why? Because of a gzeira, people say that they're giving wives as gifts. Then we do not make her leave her husband Bob. However, if she does marry someone else, then we do make her go ahead and leave the other guy, the other Kevin. Why? The boy that you may live tonight because she never filled the condition, and therefore we make her go ahead and leave the other marriage. And Tanya Kabal say the Rabba, we have a Bryce in support of Rabba. Harezu like to say lo lacher. She can't go ahead and marry not Bob and not anybody else. If he says low. But she does go ahead and marry Bob, then then she can't go. Then we don't make her leave. However, but somebody else, because the condition is not fulfilled, then she must leave. Fine. 2 dots smack in the middle of Hey Dalad Amud Aleph. New sugya. Taner Rabban. Now this is basically today's sugya. Hareza Gitech. Here is your get Amanas. This is your condition that you go fly. Yeah. Then you fly up to the sky, right? Not in some sort of machinery, but on your own. Or you go down into the depths, submarine, right? You go ahead and you swallow a reed that's 4 amos long. Or Amanash Kana ben Mea Ama, or go bring me a reed that's 100 amos long, or Amanash Tabri Sayom Hagadol, or that you traverse across the Mediterranean on your feet. So all these things which are physically impossible, ain't no get. It's not a get because these conditions cannot be fulfilled. Ain't no get. And Rabbi Yehuda ben Tema Aimer Kazeh get. This is a get. And Klalam Rabbi Yehuda. Why? Because there's a rule that Rabbi Yehuda says ben Tema. Called Tanai She'efshar lo the Kaimo the Seifa of Yisna lo mitchila. So anything that's impossible to go ahead and fulfill, and was stated in the beginning, Eino ela k'mafliga b'dvarim v'kasher. It's only basically sort of like wasting her time and like teasing her, and it's kosher. In other words, basically he's saying nothing. Okay, those conditions are not real, and therefore we throw out those words that he's saying, and she is divorced basically without condition. All right, so now the Rabbanan say it's a condition that can't be fulfilled, and therefore it's not a get. And Rabbi Yehuda ben Tema says no, it's mumbo jumbo, and therefore there's no Tanai, and therefore it's a get. That's the machlokas to remember. Now, Amar Rav Nachman Rav. Halach Rabbi Yehuda ben Tema. The halach is like Rabbi Yehuda ben Tema that it was meaningless and therefore it's a good get. It says the Kol she'efshar lo the kaimo the Seifo. He's now allowed to chilasa Tanai Kai. Anything that's possible for him to go ahead and fulfill, and it was the condition was made in the beginning. Then Tanai Kai. Then the Tanai is Kai. Oh, yafshar Tanai. But if it's impossible, then Tanai batal. Then the Tanai is batal. Shema mina, indeed, learn from here. Right? I forgot what that was. The Mishnah. Right. That was the Mishnah. Right. Right. Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, fine. Thank you. Yeah, where's the Gimel? Yeah. Okay. Fine. Now, so that was what was stated. You go ahead and you eat pork. Now, is that considered to be something which is physically impossible or not? Right? Is an avera something which is impossible or not? Mahu. So Amar Abaye, he. Abaye says this is impossible. Right? Something impossible. This is the same machlekes. This would be Rabbi Yehuda ben Tema says it's meaningless, and the other one says, well, you fulfill the condition, otherwise too bad. And Rav Amar Efsha D'Achla B'Lakia. No. Okay, you want me to eat a chazer? All right, she'll eat a chazer and she'll get malchus. It is physically possible. Therefore, according to Rava, the Tanai stands. And Le'abaye, and therefore we'll explain this. Le'abaye klal. Now, if you look back in the Brisa, right? So just looking at the words of the Brisa, we have to remember this. It says over there, Rabbi Yehuda ben Tema Omer Kazeh get, right? This is the case of the physically impossible. It says kazeh get, and then he rules with a klal, right? Something which right, is nothing. Now, so that which says klal, lasuyi basar chazir. Klal, right, here's a rule. So usually when it says here's a rule, it comes to include a case. It comes to include something which is impossible. Eating pork, it's impossible. Jews are commanded not to. So therefore, it will be the same thing according to Abaye. This is what comes to include the word klal. And look,
And they were talking about when a person stops a person possibly doing evil. So it was, you can't stop a person from doing something that is required.
Right.
Could be the same answer here.
that over there, and all right, what we said. You saying in terms of yesterday, or I'm saying I'm saying it was like I'm saying like recently, or like we said like in the bus. Yeah. Okay. Right. And we said it there. It was Iker Dover Minatira.
Yeah.
Right. So over here, so that was stated before, right? So, but over here, you're not being Iker, you're just violating, and therefore, so over there, not to do Yibum is you have to do Yibum, and therefore you're throwing off, you're preventing the obligation of Yibum. Over here, she's still obligated not to eat pork. She's just eating pork, right? She doesn't have to fulfill it tonight. She can say, you know what, I'll remain married, and therefore the Tanai is that condition. So we're soon going to get to actually a very similar point to what you're saying, to be masna al davar shemas b'Torah, to be making condition on something which is written in the Torah, right? Which is this case, right? But the Gemara is going to actually touch on that point. So good point. So according to Abaye, it's the same thing. That was the call coming to according to Rava, kazeh lamiyute basar chazir, right? When Rava says like this, right, excludes basar chazir. Now it's like this, something physically impossible is mambo jumbo, but something which is physically impossible, eating pork, then that's a good tonight. So the plain. Here is your get in the condition, you go have relations with Ploni. So niskayim at Tanai, if the Tanai was fulfilled, harei a get. She goes ahead in relations with somebody else, right? Then it's a get. V'im lav ain't a get, but if not, it's not a get. So almanas sheloi tivali la'aba. So he says on the condition that you do not have relations with la'aba to my father or lavicha to your father. Ein chayshin shema nivela lahen. We're not chayshish that she's going to go ahead and have relations with him, and therefore the condition is not fulfilled, and therefore she's divorced. Now, now the other cases are not necessarily an avera. Right? In other words, let's say he says you're divorced now as long as you go ahead and have a relationship with somebody else. So that's not technically a violation of the Torah, right? Because it should be a pnuya, right? And he's and he's a man. So therefore, in this case, but it doesn't say loikatani. It doesn't mention the case of the avera of having relations with my father or with your father. So the Abaye nicha, according to Abaye, it works out well because according to Abaye, right, that's impossible. However, the Rava kasha, but according to Rava, who says, okay, go ahead and do the avera, and then that should be a condition on the for a get. It's a kasha. I understand by basar chazir. Okay, like we said, she can go ahead and eat and get malchus. However, in plenty nami, even if they have a relationship with somebody else, she can go ahead and pay the guy and says, look, I have to go fill tonight. Here's some money, and let's go ahead and fill the condition. Ella abba vevicha, right? But for her, if the condition was a condition you have relations with my father or with your father, is it up to her? The he of the surah. Okay, yes, it's one thing. She wants to go ahead and to do the isser in order to fulfill the condition. That's fine. However, right? They're not going to go ahead and do it. So therefore, that's the reason why it's not mentioned. So therefore, it says l'rava klal. When it says to Rava, what's the klal? Efshar lasuye abba v'avicha, right? In the case to include abba v'avicha, right? The case of abba v'avicha is impossible because the fathers won't do it. And kazeh, and when it says kazeh like this, is a get lemiyute basar chazir, right? To exclude basar chazir, the basar chazir is a valid condition on a get. And Abaye, and therefore, according to Abaye, how will you understand it? When it says the word klal, and this is the general rule, if it's impossible, right? So he says klal le'asuye basar chazir, because according to by any aver, even basar chazir is included as something impossible, and kazeh, like this is again lemiyute ploni, right? To exclude ploni. In other words, if she says go ahead, if he says go ahead, and this is your again a condition that you have relations with ploni, right? Who's not related, and therefore there is no instrument of Torah. So therefore, that is considered to be a good Tanai. However, so let's say he said this is your get, and the condition then you go ahead and eat pork. Or v'im ha'isa zara, let's say she was a non-Kohen, amanash techli with truma, you go ahead and eat truma. V'im ha'isa nazira, if she was a nazira, amanash tishliyan, you go ahead and drink wine. All these are violations. So this kaima tanai, if the condition is fulfilled, harez a get. That is a good get. The imlav ain't no get, but if she doesn't fulfill it, doesn't do the aver, it's not a get. So the Rava Nicha, according to Rava, this is good because remember Rava says, okay, an Isser could be a Tanai on the get. Just you want to go ahead and fulfill it, so you're going to have to pay the price and get Malchus or whatever the punishment is. However, Labaye Kasha, according to Abaye, it's a Kasha because he says if something is an Avera, it's physically impossible. So Abaye, Misras Dibyakoni, who says this according to everybody? Hamani Rabbanan. This is the Rabbanan who argue with Rabbi Yehuda ben Taimah. Now, basically going back to Mark's point, wait, I understand. Isn't this making a condition on something which is in the Torah? Anytime the person makes a condition on something which is in the Torah, the Tanai should be batal. When do we have these rules of you make conditions something Tanai batal? Let's say things that he's obligated for the Torah to do. He has to go ahead and provide for his wife certain things, right? Relations and clothes and sustenance, right? So those things he's obligated to do, and he's saying, I'm not doing it. So he's violating the Torah. The Hukakar, he's the one making the condition, and he's the one who's being akid in the Torah. But over here, she's the one who's being akid in the Torah. So Mar says, does it make sense? Basketball Ravina. So Klum Kakra, right? Right? Is she only doing it? Elakuma tonight D-Day, right? She's only doing it to fulfill his condition, right? So you have the Diyu Kakra. It turns out that that he is the one who's uprooting it. By him telling her to do it, she is uprooting the Torah. When do we say that you make condition tonight bato? Because that is certainly being Iker. This is what the Torah requires, and I will marry you on the condition that we don't do what the Torah requires. It will be Iker. Over here, he's just making a condition. You can stay married, no big deal, right? And you don't have to violate the Torah. So therefore, that's the difference. In the case, right, and this will go back to Mark's question, right? In that case, over there, you're saying, we're going to go ahead, right? Let's say in the case of the Yibum, right over there, so we're going to marry this, and therefore, Yibum will not be possible. So there's Eichid Dem in Torah. When you go ahead and I'll marry you, but I'm not going to provide you anything, you're Akar Davar Min Torah. But over here, what he's saying, go ahead and be Basar Chazir. Okay, so don't eat Basar Chazir, and therefore you remain married. So therefore, the Tanai is not batal. It's not Masna Mashikas Torah because it's not something that's automatically happening. Fine. 2 dots. Middle of Pei Dalet and Beis. Now comes the in a minute. Will be the next second. So Katie asks, so let's say he goes ahead and gets the word. He says on a condition. So he takes it back and he re-gives it to her without saying the condition of, remember the condition was you're a free woman, you're free to everybody except, or Ella Leploni, right? We had machlokes whether element chutz or element almanas. Now, Montana, who is the one who says you got to go ahead and take the get back and re-give it? We saw earlier, a person gives a get to somebody, and he doesn't say anything. He just gives a piece of paper. The thing, it's a loan document, so it's nothing. He has to take it back, according to Shimon Elazar, and he has to take it back and re-give and say, "This is your get." So therefore, it's the same Tana as in that case over there, right? He has to go ahead and take it back and give it back and say, "Hey, this is your get." And say it's your get. And Rabbi Yechon Amar Afilu Tema Rabbi. Even could say it's Rabbi. right? Dilchun, right? Says Dilchun Amar. So he says Dilchun was a name for Rav Kahana, right? It was from so I guess we went from Bavel to Eretz Israel. He asked all the questions, and Rav Kahana answered them, and so he called him like the Rebbe of there. So he says, the wise one. So the Dilchun, the guy who's yours. So the Dilchun Amar, right, referring to Rav Kahana. Shani Hacha Haya v'Kanasa Lipasal Abikuna. Over here, if he gives her a get in such a case like this, so he passes her mina kahuna. She's considered a grusha, right? In terms of that, she's now pasal mina kahuna, right? Even though she's not technically divorced, but she's pasal mina kahuna. So since it's valid to pasal her, so therefore she acquires the get. If she acquires the get, maybe even, right, Rebbe, right, would agree in this case that you don't have to go ahead and give it back because she never acquired it. In the case where nothing was said, she didn't acquire anything, therefore give it back and let him re-give it. But over here, she already acquired it in order to be pasul nekuna. If that's the case, maybe even Rebbe would agree that she has to, since she acquired it somewhat, right, then therefore it has to be given back and re-given again. Fine. Now, last sugya, we're going to try and take this to the Mishnah. Hashem. So it says, so you look back in the Mishnah, on Pei Beis Amud Aleph, so it just says over there, if it was written in Kasav B'Seicha, if it was written in the get, right, that Harei At Mater Zechol Adam El Leploni, Apa Pisha Chazer, even if she gave, he says no good, like give it back, even if she gives it back and he re-gives it, and he erases it, Machko, Pasul, it's no good. All right, so if it was written inside, it's no good. Now, Zak the Gemara. So Amarav Safra, Kasav B'Seichel Tanan. It says it was written inside. It says Pshita. I understand. Kasav B'Seichel Tanan. Yeah. What are you coming to answer, Rav Safra? Yeah, that's the Mishnah. It says it was written inside. Harei Mater Zechol Adam Elul Leploni. So Mali Emoja said Hani Mili Le'achar HaToref. That was maybe Le'achar HaToref. In other words, there's two parts. There's a Toref. There's a Teifes. Right. The Toref is basically the main part. It has the names. It has the date. Right. The location. So the Toref, so let's say it was only Hani Miliachar Toref, Aval Lifnei Toref, but if it was before Toref, Afilu Al Ped Nami Pasal, then he can't go ahead and do it, and give it. Afilu Al Ped Nami Pasal, right? That even he would say it orally, he would not be able to go ahead and, that even if it was written without it, right? But it was said, in other words, even at the time of when it was written, right? It was stated, right? So afilu al peh nami pasal, right? But before the Torah, when a guy says something as the sefer is writing it, it would pass the get, right? Let's go ahead and give this, even though it's not written there. He just says, yeah, I'm going to give it to her, mattering it to everybody except El Leploni, right? So maybe. And then no, that's not the case. Only if it was written inside, then it's possible. We're only talking about achar Torah. But if it was before the Torah, even if it was only al peh, and he told the suffers as the sufferer was beginning to write the main part of the get, the Torah, nevertheless, it would be possible. And the Yozda Rav Latami, Rav goes to Shitasu, the Amarlu, Rav Lahan the Ksivi Giti. He told Rav told the different sefer people who were writing the Gitin, Shtuki Labal, make sure you quiet the husband doesn't say anything. Ad the Ksiva say the Torah the Gita until the Torah is written. The Torah has to be clearly written. Make sure the husband doesn't say anything, because if the husband says anything, then it's like that was the intention of the get. And if it's the intention of the get, even though it was written one way, but the intentions were with a certain condition or that it wouldn't be fully safer creases, then it would pass on the get. So therefore, even something bedibur would pass if it was lifnei Torah. That was according to Rav. Tana Rabbanan, 6 lines from the bottom. Kol hatnain paislin beget divrei Rebbe. So I think Alan was even pointing out any condition. Alan. Alan's not here. Alan's not here. Yeah.
He has no idea what he's doing. He's called uncalibrated.
Alan Gershman, the guy who usually sits behind. So now, so he pointed out, so anything, and which is what we hold, it was also taken out all outside of Shulchan Aruch. So any tanai, any condition that's on a get, passes the get, divrei Rebbe. Right, so all of this is thrown out. Anything that passes al peh, then it passes when it's if it's written in. But let's say something is not passed al peh, you can do a condition. Then it's not possible b'ksav. Chutz. Now, if he says, "Hey, you're mutar sechol to everybody," chutz miploini, right? Shepaisel al peh that does pass al peh, paisel b'ksav. That would pass al ksav. Al manas, but according to Chamin, the condition could work. Al manas. She'ena paisel al peh does not pass al peh. Eina paisel b'ksav does not pass al b'ksav. And on Reb Zer, now we have two ways to explain machlekes. Machlekes lifnei haTorah. This machlekes, right? The Chamin is before the Torah is written, before the main part is written. The Rebbe Savar Gazrin al manas atu chutz. That you know what? Since chutz doesn't work, we're also going to say al manas doesn't work if it's before the Torah. Even if you say al manas, they don't marry plum, which is a tanai, which normally could work if you hold tanaim work. Nevertheless, that doesn't work with leaving out Torah. But Rabban and Sabri like al manas atu chutz, and the Rabban say no. Al manas is okay, right? Even though chutz is no good, al manas is still okay. But after Torah, divrei hakol. Everyone would say if it's done after the main part, divrei hakol kasher. Everyone would say that is kasher because once the Torah is written, then we don't care. Mas Nisan in our Mishnah, Diktani Kosvo, right? Our Mishnah says if it's written in it, you can't go ahead and read it. We're talking about a case of when it was chutz, which passes it. Amanas loy pass. But if it was amanas, then it doesn't pass. By saying, or you can say lifnei haTorah, or you can say you're talking about a case of before it was done, before the Torah of the main part. But Rabbanan will be according to the Rabbanan who say it's no good because remember the Rabbanan say that if it was written before, it's no good. Or by saying Torah, or you can say it was done after the Torah of the divrei hakol, and you would say everybody would say that it is a good get. The Rav Amar and Rav would say machlekes liachar Torah. The machlekes is only achar Torah. The Rebbe Savar Gazrin atu Gazrin atu lifnei Torah. Right? He says no. Achar Torah is no good because before the Torah is no good. Rabban Sabi like Gazrin atu lifnei Torah. Right? He says no. We're not geyser because before after because of before. But if it was indeed, excuse me, before the Torah. Divrei hakol pasel. Everyone says it is pasel. So Masnisin in our Mishnah, Tani Kasu. He says he wrote it. V'yokimna b'chutz. Right? We must talk about a case talking about b'chutz. Manas, but if it's done on condition, lo pasel achar tarif. They were not pasel achar tarif. V'rabbanani. This would be according to the Rabban. And Tani Aviyad the Rabbi Avin Kamei the Rabbi Zera Kasav get al Tanai. If one writes a get al Tanai, Divrei hakol pasel. Everyone agrees it's possible. Mar says divrei hakol pasel. Mitfigad pligi. Actually, it's a machlekes. Says ela ema. Rather, what I meant to say was the divrei hakol kasher. Everyone says it's kasher. V'heichidami. What's the case? Liachar Torah. Everyone agrees that if it's al manas after the Torah was written, then it's okay. I v'lema hareze pasel the Rebbe. Why don't you say it's pasel? According to Rebbe, even lachar Torah is pasel. So Tana, the Rebbe Tana. So he says divrei hakol. So if that's the case, she says no. So Tana divrei hakol asniya. So he really learned it was divrei hakol. So it's now we're talking about a case of Rebbe or the Rabbanan. It was divrei hakol. So why did he say divrei? First he said divrei hakol pasel. He says when he divrei hakol pasel, he says oh no, I meant divrei hakol kasher. Why? So Tana divrei hakol. So he knew it was divrei hakol. So kasher pasel michliflei. So he would have confused, right? He said originally he said divrei hakol pasel, and he said oh right, it must have been divrei hakol kasher. So he confused kasher b'pasel michliflei. However, harezeh b'divrei hakol lo michliflei. But he didn't say right harezeh Rebbe right. In other words, this pasel according to Rebbe versus case of divrei hakol. Then he wouldn't confuse. So he got the divrei hakol right, and he just got the kasher and pasel part wrong, and therefore it should say divrei hakol kasher, and we're talking about liachar haTorah. All right, we'll stop here. Shkoyach, everybody. Tomorrow with Hashem, we will continue from the Mishnah. Everybody have a wonderful day.